Hello and welcome to the Catch a Lift Coach's Corner. I am Cal Coach Melissa, and this week I am honored to welcome Rhodie Lorenz to the show. Rhodie is the owner of Joyride Studios and an avid Catch a Lift supporter. Welcome to this week's episode of Coach's Corner. Rhodie, welcome.
Hi. Thank you
So
so much
excited to
for
have you.
having me. I am so
Oh my
excited
gosh.
to be here.
Absolutely. Let's get right into it, Rhodie. Would you talk to us a little bit about fitness and really if your whole life you've been a fitness-oriented person?
I have. I would say like going way back. I started out in dance, and just as a girl, I loved that. I loved like the combination of music and movement, and both how that helped you disconnect just from your day or your thoughts. Um, and then just kind of like the mood that it created while you were doing it and after. And then when I was in high school, I started playing sports. And then after that, I just always used exercise as, kind of a daily habit that I
Right.
knew, kind of provided me with energy, some clarity. I never envisioned that my career would, be in fitness when I was graduating from college
Yeah.
and stuff. But it was always part of who I was, and just an important part of staying healthy in both my mind and my body.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us. What would bring you to actually becoming a fitness instructor, Rhodie?
So I was a new mom, and I had left a job that I loved. I was teaching high school English out in California, actually. And then we moved to Boston for my husband's training. He is a cardiologist, and I was at home with two young boys, and we didn't have enough to provide for childcare. And so financially, it made more sense for me to stay home with
Right.
them. And for any, new mom with two young kids, especially in the dark winters of
Yeah.
Boston, not really having a community to lean on or family to, be stepping in. I was going to my local gym, and I had been introduced to spinning or indoor cycling while I lived in California. And I went to a couple of classes, and I was like, these instructors are not very good. The music's not very good. I could do this. And then it dawned on me that not only could I do it, but then I could get free childcare and a free gym membership
Yeah.
and, get paid for working out. So it turned out to be a really good gig. And I loved the coaching part of it. And it definitely gave me a break in both, like, the mental and physical demands of being a mom, sleep deprived, and just trying to juggle all those things. So I would say it
Right.
was a really integral part of my mental health, my sanity, and then being able to like be more present for my boys too.
That's so cool, Rhodie. Talk to us about what would make you decide to actually open up your own studios.
So I had been teaching for probably about 8 years. And during that time, I then had three boys. And it was great in the sense that my job was very flexible.
Yeah.
So I could be there when they got home from school. And if I needed to get a sub to help out in the classroom or something. So I really appreciated that flexibility. And as they got older and I had more time, I started teaching more. I became certified in Pilates. And I was at a little bit of a crossroads trying to figure out where my career was going to go. And I loved the coaching, but I also knew that professionally I wanted to be a little bit more challenged, and I wanted to have, like grow in different ways.
Right. Right.
And so at that point, I had been teaching in multiple towns at various gyms, and there weren't even that many studios at the time. It was really more gym based. And I, ended up meeting a woman in town who had the same idea of potentially starting a local studio. And I just knew from the places that I taught between management and facilities that like the experience could be so much better if
Right.
all the attention were given to that and all of those details were taken care of. And so I wanted to be part of that creative experience as well as just like understand and learn more about, the business side of it too.
That's incredible, Rhodie. Talk to us about what have been some of the highlights of your time as a business owner owning these studios.
I mean, the highlights are having a concept that you're literally sitting in a coffee shop brainstorming and talking about, and then like seeing it come to life and like real customers come in and people feeling connected to it and ownership over it. And it really is. I mean, in terms of, a parallel still in them, but it takes on a life of its own,
Yeah.
which is really exciting. And it's really fun to watch. And then, building your team and training instructors and watching them go from a little uncertain of themselves to like powerhouses and, owning it and just being like really seeing people reach potential. And I think that like fitness enables us to do that. That's one of the greatest parts of it.
Oh, for sure.
Bringing out parts of ourselves. And then just from a business perspective, participating in that and just watching that happen and how it changes people's lives. So no doubt that's been the highlight. Consistently for me, it's brought me a lot of joy.
Rhodie, kind of the flip to that, what have been some of the hardest things that you've learned as a business owner in the fitness industry?
There have been many, and there's a quote that's like, "If you have a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life." And I believe that is like wholeheartedly not true from my experience. And I love what I do,
Right.
but it's a lot of work. And I think that both owning a business, anyone who owns and starts a small business, particularly since we have phones that we carry around with us everywhere, we're available
Yes.
24/7. So there's no office hours, your weekends.
100%.
And
Yep.
actually in fitness, weekends are really big. So like I'm always up by 6 a.m. on Saturday mornings. And between management issues or, upcoming things like the weekend hours, I try to have boundaries, but it takes up a lot of that time.
Yeah.
So I would say the level of work and did you ask specifically about the COVID time or just owning a business in general?
Yeah, just owning in general.
Yeah. And then, there are a lot of costs associated with things. I think as a customer, any store we go into, we don't see all the behind the scenes of what
Definitely.
it takes to manage it.
Right.
And so that, especially as we grew, because we started with one studio in Westport, and at our height, we had 7.
Wow.
And so it just exponentially becomes more to manage, more meetings, more accountability, more processes, more people. I mean, sometimes I joke and I have the greatest team, but like if you could run a business without people, it would be so much more streamlined because obviously people have personalities. And then with that, there are conflicts within the organization. And so, that stuff is, it is challenging and it's definitely not a straight line.
Yeah. Rhodie, what advice do you have for anyone that's kind of sitting in a coffee shop having those conversations, right, with a pipe dream of opening a gym or a studio type setting?
So the advice that I would have is that it's so rewarding to go for it. Like we talk about a lot of things and we can talk ourselves out of a lot of things because it's overwhelming. And I don't think that, I don't have an MBA, neither does my partner. I think that you have to be very prepared to take risks and figure things out. And it's not just starting the business, it's that process every day because there's no playbook for your particular business. And you can learn a lot and model it after this and that. But what's unique is the group of people you put together, the novel concept that you're trying to create. And so for me, I really found and surrounded people who believed in me because there are so many times where you're not going to believe that, like, who am I to be doing this,
Yeah.
And so I think that the team for me has been the most important part. Like surround yourself with, you don't have all the skills. Like you're not going to be the accountant, the marketer, the legal person negotiating the leases, the front desk and the product that you provide. So find the people that are really good at those things and know what you bring, and be very clear about delegating that, would be my advice.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you for that, Rhodie. And we'll in a few minutes we'll get, we want to talk about the pandemic and kind of, how you adapted through that. But just to kind of expand on that a little bit, like you said, there's obviously constantly challenges that come up along the way. What really has kind of pushed you or propelled you to stay motivated and stay on this track, like through these difficult times?
Mhm.
Again, not necessarily just COVID, but just
Yeah.
everything that comes up to own a business.
Yeah. Um, that's a great question. And as, passionate as I am about what I do, we can't be like at our highest energy level all the time.
Yeah.
So I would say twofold. One is, and I've gotten much better at this than I was in the beginning, but finding places where I can recharge and things that I know, like either whether it's downtime or I love reading, I love cooking,
Yeah.
just carving out time, because the business will like take what it can from
Yeah.
you. Like there's never a time to turn it off.
Right, I'm
So I
assuming,
would
right, it's
say
just gonna
finding
completely consume you if you don't.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I would say finding areas where you can shut that out as much as you can, and, kind of charge your battery with, whatever those things are. They're different for different people. So that would be the first one. And I would say the second one is just because it's group fitness and I know that people are relying on me, it's both a privilege and a responsibility, I think. And in the best of ways, it keeps me accountable and going. And so waking up in the morning, you have those days where you're like, oh, I just want to hit the snooze button. But I know that as soon as I walk in that door and I, close the door behind me and we put the music on and you start the workout, like that's the best feeling.
Oh, I love it. Rhodie, talk to us a little bit about how you've seen the fitness industry evolve over your career.
It has been so interesting. When I began, it was literally the late 90s. I'm going to be dating myself here. In California, spinning was relatively new and had come out. And you really just went to a gym to exercise for those things.
Right.
And so going from the gym model, it started to evolve. I think the first modalities were mainly Pilates and yoga, maybe some bar, that really had their own standalone
Right.
experience.
Yep.
And at that time, I don't think you could really find yoga and Pilates in a gym. It was much more cardio, strength training, loud music, that sort of thing. So there were a couple of companies, including like a Soul Cycle, that took the concept of just one specific kind of form of exercise.
Right.
And let's just focus on that. Let's train the instructors to do that really, really well, get the atmosphere right. And that sort of paved the way for people feeling like there's more of a community in those places. You're going to find a community through fitness in a lot of different modalities. Like cycling just happens to be, totally my jam, but I
Yeah.
had it through CrossFit or through, a boxing program or, something like Barry's Boot Camp. Like all of those, lend themselves to like pulling people together because you're in it doing such hard stuff. And so from, the first couple, and we opened in 2011 and we were one of the first in our town. And then over the past decade, there's just been an explosion, and between franchises and national chains, and it became the next big thing. Like
Right.
everyone was into getting fit, and then it was like, well, let me go here and here. And so people then started having memberships at multiple places because, unlike a gym, there weren't a lot of options within one. And we all know that like the cross training part is a really important part of the experience too. So, and I think that now, I think like any trend, like it's swung really far that way, and
For
people were
sure.
not going into the big box gyms. They wanted classes, they wanted specialized. And now I think it's going to like come back a little and look a little different. But for our particular business, it's made it difficult because it's really saturated the market. And so it's hard to compare to the early days where we didn't have that as much competition in our
Right.
town. It's made it a little bit more fragmented, but we still have our very loyal people who, recognize that you can work out anywhere, but the community at Joyride is very distinct.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Rhodie, talk to us a little bit about how the Joyride Studios overcame the pandemic.
Most of the Joyride studios overcame the pandemic. It's been a really, really hard time for fitness, as it has, I
Yeah.
know, like so many industries. We rely on volume and people coming in the door in person. And we got really creative. We started with 7 studios. We had 2 in San Antonio, and 5 in Connecticut. 3 of ours in Connecticut have since shut down. So that was a direct result of just, mandated. We were
Right.
mandated to be closed. We were mandated to operate at 25% capacity, wear masks.
Right.
And so understandably, I mean, people felt very
Yeah.
fearful and uncertain, and we were getting new information every couple weeks. So the studios that did stay open, I will speak mostly about our Westport one because that's where we kind of got the most creative. We took bikes outside and we did that every day for over a year. We got into some problems with the noise because we have very loud music. We didn't even realize that we have neighbors on the other side of our parking lot because there are big trees there. So we found out quickly because everyone was working at home and
Right.
homeschooling.
Yeah.
So people were quickly like, okay, we're not having a dance party at 8:30 in the morning when I'm on a Zoom call. So we ordered the silent disco headphones, which were a perfect solution because we could control our own volume and still get
Oh,
that
that's so cool.
immersive
Yeah.
experience, but not be, totally disruptive to the neighborhood. And as winter came, we had diehards who still wanted to come and yet didn't feel comfortable coming back inside. So we had a window, and because of the silent headphones, we had a window outside. So it was like, they were right on the outside. We could see each other. We were through glass, and they could participate in the class and sort of adapt to that. And they're like, well, we go skiing in the winter and we go snowshoeing, and as long as you get your heart rate up, like, you can still get your workout in. So those were a few of the things we did. We also did we did some virtual stuff. So we did launch an online program for a little while. We did Instagram Live, we did Zoom classes. So we tried as much as we could to stay connected with our community.
That's so cool. How did the community, like, just overall roll with those punches?
I would say that we had some amazing people step forward and be like, we'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And for their own sanity too, when there was so much uncertainty and stress, it was a great way of pulling together and providing support for each other. And so I was really impressed and grateful for people just continuing to stay in it with us.
Yeah.
And we're still in the process of like building our numbers back up again because, people, they start different, workout habits. They, get some home equipment. And so we're still trying to bring people back, but I'm really, really proud of our team and our community that we have come this far, for sure.
It's just phenomenal. Rhodie, would you talk a little bit about kind of just the overall environment of a Joyride studio if someone was to come?
Sure. I would say that our studio is really founded on the premise that life is full of challenges, and we want you to walk into our studio and not feel like you're alone, and that you can put your effort and your energy into one place that's going to be supported, very positive, and empower you to leave a class like sweat drenched and all of that, and 50 minutes of just checking out of your head, and just leave there with a different mindset about tackling those challenges, and just feeling like you're a part of something too. And people tend to get intimidated, particularly about spinning, because they're like, oh, I have to be in such good shape, or there's all this gear you wear because people
Yeah.
with their shoes. And I always counter and say, the room is dark. No one's looking at you. You control your own resistance. If you ever need a break, if you're, wanting to work really hard and turn it up, you can do that. So in one class, you can have multi-levels and people of all different backgrounds, fitness, age, weight, all of that stuff. And everyone's going to get out of it what they can put into it.
Let's get into that a little more, Rhodie, with the spin classes. Talk to us about what you find enjoyable about instructing a spin class.
I love the group energy. I love the music. I love that people are there for one common goal. And it's a combination of themselves, really putting themselves there to improve their mental and physical strength, as well as give energy and be part of a team, so that together, we're all lifting each other up. And I would say that for me is the essence. And even though I'm trying to explain it, it's something I find hard to put in words, because I feel like it's a feeling.
For sure.
And that's the part that I love the most.
Rhodie, what does it take to prepare for a spin class for you?
So it takes a playlist, and our classes are 50 minutes, and they are choreographed to a particular BPM of the music, and different drills or choreography that we do to that. So I usually sit down on my computer and I begin my playlist, and depending on the day, in some ways I feel like it's a little, I don't know if it's like a journaling is the right thing, but it definitely is a reflection of my mood.
Yeah.
Kind of that day or that week. And I always try to include kind of different moods of it. So I always make sure that we have one that's like an upbeat, you just kind of want to rock out and it feels really fun and high energy. And then something else that's a little bit more subdued, but you can turn up the resistance, kind of get really gritty, but just almost like a moving meditation. Also just like kind of get out of your head and just get quiet. Because for me, finding that quiet space is really hard. We all have a lot of stuff going on in our heads, and to practice that is a really important part of a cycling class for me, and to try to take people to that place when we are otherwise so bombarded. So the playlist is one, and then I usually try to have a theme that connects with it. And when I'm training instructors and we're talking about a theme, it's always something that is universal that everybody can relate to. But I think it's most impactful when it's told in a storytelling kind of personal way. Because I never want to come across as like preachy or this is what you should do, or but I do want people to understand that, like, whether it's failure or fear or disappointment, that's part of the human experience. We're not going to get through this journey not having gone through that. But it's always helped me when people have shared their struggles and been open and vulnerable. And so that's part of what, I try to do and our instructors try to do, because it just helps with that connection. People are, feeling like we're in this together in the room.
Oh my gosh, that's absolutely incredible. And I'm going to give my little anecdotal story to all of this and my spin class experience for you in just a minute. But Rhodie, will you give us some of the more memorable themes that you've had through the years in a spin class that you've put on?
Okay. I would say, literally top of my list, and I would say this to anyone I'm talking to, not just you, but my catch a lift rides, when we've had the veterans come in, have been epic. Truly epic. And I think one of the first years, Ryan Major, who was unable to pedal because he's a double amputee. We brought in one of the machines that he could use his arms. And so he rode right alongside me the entire class. And it was so inspiring watching him with such heart. And at those moments where, it's hard, you're turning it up. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't breathe anymore. I want to take a break. And I look over at him and it was just this like infusion of, I don't know, like personal perseverance and stamina, and just knowing his story and that he is up here and he keeps trying. It was so powerful. And I actually felt badly though, because then we, as you know, we do arm work at the end. And so I'm like, I hand him the weights. He's like, Rhodie, what are you doing this whole time? And I'm like, oh my God, for 50 minutes, you're the one who's been, you know. So, and then Sarah Rudder also came up and, she's like so badass and like busting it. And then she's sweating so much, she has to take off, her leg and dump all the water out and then put it on.
Yeah.
But just, I think being part of, your community at Catch a Lift and just all of the amazing individuals, it was such an honor to have all of you guys in the class and then, have them up there riding. And I know that our riders and community felt exactly the same way. On a kind of lighter note, I've done themes like your first concert ride. So everybody who's in the class sends in their first concert. And because we have a diverse group of ages, it goes literally from like NSYNC to like Jefferson Airplane or like Grateful Dead. And then it makes the playlist super fun because it's like some U2, some Bruce Springsteen, some totally random ones. And then people are like, oh, and then it like draws this memory of your first concert, which is like you were like with your teen friends or something, and just like good memories. So those have been some fun ones too.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us. You've touched on this at various points of this talk, but I just, kind of want to directly talk to you about this because it's incredible to witness live. Rhodie, talk to us about the empowerment that you witness that these rides create.
I mean, I have so many individual stories from people that kind of speak to your earlier question about like what keeps me going in it. And I think that I've learned so much that we never know what people's journeys are. And we have so many people who walk in, they sign in and they sit on their bike and they come and they ride, day after day. And, sometimes they'll chat for a little bit, but, I don't really know their story. And I had, for example, one woman who told me after she'd been riding for a year that she had been battling cancer that whole year. And that for the 50 minutes she came in, she didn't think of herself as a cancer patient. And that physical endurance that she was building enabled her. She was like, this was such an important tool for me to use to get through this difficult time. And so when I started this, I was like, oh, I like to exercise. And I knew that it could be transformative because on a personal level, it had been for me. But the older we get, the more we bump into so many of life's greater challenges, like if you're fortunate not to have to have had like a relatively smooth childhood and that kind of thing, the older we get, that's part of life. And so that intersection of, being able to provide a space and, guidance for people to try to, stay with it and make it fun and uplifting. I would say it's transformative. And there are many people who, have on the side kind of told me in hindsight, kind of what had happened and that keeps me going and like transforms me every day too.
Oh, I can only imagine some of the stories you've heard through the years. That's just phenomenal. Rhodie, would you talk to us just a little bit about how you've seen fitness be a part of your entire family?
Yes, I would love to. This is not something I would have ever predicted, but I have 3 boys who are all very competitive cross country and track runners. And I had never been to a cross country or track meet until they started in high school. I don't even know if I think my high school had one, but I definitely never went.
Yeah.
And I ran for exercise, and my husband did too, but neither of us were in that. But we always put an emphasis on physical activity, and especially having boys with a whole lot of energy. If you're a dog, they need to run too. And so this was just, very clear that like for them on a very basic level, which proves that it is like a human need and driver, and being sedentary is not what we were born and designed to do. Right. And so, from a young age, we channeled them into sports and, getting their energy out, and their mood and all of that was, much better. And then I think, they discovered that on their own, and running is a very disciplined and grueling sport. And the way that they participate all 3 seasons, they do it all year round. Wow. And so I think it's actually been so, like, we always use the metaphors of sports too with life, because it's such a perfect, you keep striking out, but you keep getting back up to bat. And I think that that's become, like, in a very organic way for them. They kind of got that on their own.
Right.
And my husband and I are, I'm obviously, because it's my job, but my husband is also very active, exercises every day. So I think that if you are trying to instill some kind of value in what's important to you, to your kids, it's mostly what you do too, and
for sure.
So I think that they've absorbed some of it. And my hope is that it becomes, ingrained in them, that it's part of their life as they grow older too.
Oh, thank you for touching on that for us, Rhodie. I want to kind of switch gears back now to Catch a Lift. Rhodie, how did you first even learn about Catch a Lift? How was it introduced to you?
So I was invited to a small, I don't even think it was a dinner. It was a small gathering. Catch a Lift was coming to town. It was Lynn and 2 veterans at the time. They were coming to Westport, and a few people in the community who I, kind of knew, Adam Vengro and Andy Berman. And Andy and I had heard a lot about each other, but I think our first formal introduction was actually through Catch a Lift.
Oh, wow. Oh, my
and gosh. That goes back many years. This is probably now 8 years ago, maybe. And so we met, and they were talking about starting a fitness weekend and inviting veterans to come. And since I had the studio, would I participate? And we were going to try to get the town involved. And I loved the idea. And so that's sort of how we kicked it off. And then between Adam, Andy, and myself, we loved working together, had a very similar, I would say, passion and energy level for being a part of Catch a Lift. And then the program continued to grow, and I had the opportunity to meet, more veterans. The program grew, more people came. And honestly, for the 3 of us, it's just a highlight of the year to have you guys come hear your stories. And, again, through fitness, being able to connect that way.
Yeah, fitness as that catalyst again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting, Rhodie, because you're really a part of my beginning Catch a Lift journey. Like, I always think, like, you and Westport. So, I had been a member of the Catch a Lift Fund for about a year or so before I came to Westport that first time, and what I think was like 2017 now. But this was the first time that I met any other Catch a Lift veterans. I met Lynn. I came up to Westport for that Warrior Weekend. And I remember one of the workouts, was going to be the spin class with Rhodie Lorenz. And, full disclosure, spin, it was the last thing that I was interested in. And, everything was kind of like required, you go and at least participate, and try it. I'm like, okay. And, grumble, but, it'll be fun. We're with our brothers and sisters, right? Wow. I can 100% honestly tell you that is one of the most memorable and one of my favorite workouts I've ever done in my life. That spin class with you for those 50 minutes. It was Veterans Day, and I remember that. I remember Sarah Rudder, up there on the instructor stage with you pedaling. I remember struggling, and I obviously don't ride spin, right? It was a lot, number one, harder than I thought.
Hmm.
But what sticks with me so much is you up there and, leading that ride and the things that you were saying to us, and you were like leading us. It felt like this healing journey. I can't even like explain it back now, but like I can feel it still inside. And like I pull back to that memory so much. So number one, just thank you for sharing your light all these years with Catch a Lift. But would you talk to us a little bit more, about these tribute rides that we've had, with the veterans that you've led?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, thank you so much for that. You have no idea how much that means. And I'm so honored and I'm so grateful that that was your experience, because that's, my goal and
Yeah.
intention in getting up there. And I actually like that you had like low expectations too, because that helps me out as well. So as far as the veterans rides, I mean, similar to what I was saying earlier, is trying to find that universal point of connection. And the stories that I have heard from the veterans of Catch a Lift have just been so impactful and similarly stayed with me.
Yeah.
And even, the first time and then the second time that you came, just like watching you grow and your vulnerability and bravery in, meeting all of the challenges, coming back and dealing with that is so inspiring. And so I think for those rides, I try to really pay tribute in the way that I can, and gratitude, because I've just learned, we all talk about sacrifice, and the sacrifice of the Catch a Lift veterans and our armed forces, and people who are deployed, and you can watch it on the news and read it in the paper and have sort of an intellectual compassion for it.
Right.
But to me, there is nothing like, and I want to get in there and have the connection and the conversation and be changed by that. And so to the extent that we can acknowledge that in the room and, show gratitude, and also let you know that, we are here to support you, I would say that, that would be my goal. And have fun. Like, I
Yeah.
also like, I don't want it to seem like the class, it's like, it's really important to like bring out good energy too.
Yeah.
And so that's the other part of the workout that I love. It for me, it's really fun. It's like making movement really fun with music as well.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love it. Rhodie, I have one last question for you today. What does it mean to you to be Cal Strong?
To me, being Cal Strong is to remember, I think, that truly there is no challenge that is not able to be overcome through the right community, the consistency of effort, and working on both our mental and our physical strength. And I say that because of the many Catch a Lift veterans whose stories are heartbreaking and in many ways devastating, and in all the ways very unfair. And yet the spirit of so many of the Catch a Lift veterans who have come to Westport have blown me away. And it's been just a really impactful experience for me that puts a lot of things in perspective.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rhodie, for sharing your story and your light with us today. And thank you so much for sharing your light every day with so many. That's
And
it.
thank you for having me on.
Oh my gosh, it's my honor, of
Thank you
course.
guys, again, for your service and your sacrifice and your bravery. It is an inspiration to us, and I feel really grateful to be part of your community. And I love that you are doing these podcasts, because it's so much about the storytelling and the connection, which I think is really important for more people to be hearing from the veterans too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rhodie.
Thank you.
That's it for this week's episode of Coach's Corner. We will return next Wednesday at 1 Eastern Time with another new episode. Thank you again, Rhodie, for sharing your story and your light with us all today. Thank you to ID Technologies for your support of this podcast. Thank you to Lynn Coughlin, Henry Pomper, and Kaylee Nasiri for all of the work that you do to make this podcast possible week after week. And we thank the entire CAL team. Don't forget to join us every Wednesday live at 1 p.m. Eastern on YouTube for a chance to win CAL swag and to chat with your brothers and sisters. Until next week, keep it real and stay CAL strong.